Scott Rigell. Congressman Rigell, good to have you back, man.
Hey, good morning, John. Good to be with you. And part of my commitment in public service is to keep the district informed, and this really is a great way to do it. So I appreciate the opportunity.
It is, especially because I'm the Godzilla of talk radio in Virginia, hands down. So we appreciate
I picked up on that.
Never short for an acronym. Now, let's go to the debate last night. The first Democratic debate in Vegas. Very interesting. CNN, 2 hours. I know you caught some of it. What did you think?
Yeah, John, I'm going to be really forthright with you here. I was actually disappointed that Hillary Clinton did as well as she did. Frankly, I mean, I think we're in for a real another cage match here in the presidential. I guess I should have expected that anyway. But she's a formidable opponent. She's been in this business, and I think to her it largely is a business. But she's been in this business a long time, and she's got some skilled people helping her with messaging. And so in that sense, I'm pretty sobered by it, but I tell you, to the extent that we can pierce this veil of rationality and reasonableness and really expose the agenda for what it is and show a bright, compelling alternative, the conservative alternative, we elevate the right person as our presidential candidate, we will absolutely prevail. So let's not have any question about that, but it's every person listening, if they want somebody other than Hillary Clinton to get elected, and have to lean into this in every respect. I
think you're spot on, Congressman. That's what I said at the 6 o'clock hour. I was very impressed by the way she handled the debate last night. If I was doing a boxing match, I thought Sanders won, but it didn't matter. Clinton was very polished last night. She was affable. She was smiling. A lot of the Clintonisms that you see in her contrived campaign stops where everything is so measured and robotic, you didn't really see that last night. It's obvious that, she's been campaigning a long time, and it showed through last night. She was very formidable. I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
She's going to be the nominee, and she's going to be a lot tougher than people thought, and I don't think this email thing is it's just not going anywhere. And so the Republicans are going to have to nominate somebody that's going to beat her. I think you're spot on.
Well, there's some serious investigations going on related to the email, and notwithstanding some of the attacks that have been presented there, and certainly when Kevin McCarthy, he just stumbled so badly there in his remarks about the committee itself. We've not seen the final work of the Benghazi committee. And the emails themselves, I believe the way that she's handled these things, that wasn't the intent to discover that, but in the process, obviously they did. And so I think, to me, I think there is a degree of uncertainty as to where this is all going to go. I mean, it is a legal matter, John, and I trust and I believe that good and honorable people are conducting the investigation, and they'll go where the facts lead, wherever that is. Exoneration or the alternative.
Well, we're in for a battle no matter what. Let's get to Republican leadership battle. Speaking of battles, Congressman, I was driving up the Eastern Shore the other day, and I went right by your new office there.
I tell you, every time I ride across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, I'm mindful of the history, the ships that have sailed right through the entrance to the Chesapeake Bay. John, the 2nd District has all the shoreline, from the Maryland line all the way down to the North Carolina line, the Atlantic side, the Bay side, and so we just love the Eastern Shore. It's only about 6% of the population, but we probably spend 15 or 20% of our time over there. Maybe it's because we love the shore, but anyway, I'm glad you're up there. And yeah, people on the Eastern Shore need our help. We've got that office there, right near the border of the Accomack and Northampton County line.
Well, it's accessible, and the thing I love about the office is there's this humongous sign that you can't miss. And so it just gives the feeling like, okay, my congressman is here on the Eastern Shore. It's inviting, come in, figure out, if you need anything. So,
good. I'm glad you took it that way. People do need to know how to get in touch with us, and we love the office. It's really convenient. So if anybody's listening from the Eastern Shore, stop down and see us.
Absolutely. Let's get to your leadership battle in the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy now obviously out. A couple other people say they're going to run. Paul Ryan is trying to be cajoled, if you will, convinced to run, but he's got little kids at home. I don't personally see how that makes any sense at all. We've all been through that. Where do we go from here?
Well, John Boehner's announcement was a surprise. Kevin's was stunning, and not a person left that conference, which only, frankly, was about 7 minutes long, not going, what just happened? I do understand now what Kevin did and why he did it. I can tell you that we really do have a deep bench, and it's not like most of the media presents like we're just, the world's imploding. It's not. I mean, this is just the nature of a democratic institution. My hope, now I'm more optimistic than perhaps you are about Paul. I think if he moved his kids, moved his whole family up there, everybody to understand that might help a bit. And maybe if members just made less demands on him about fundraising, that would help a bit. But he is a good man. He's an honorable man and entirely capable of leading us during this difficult hour. And I say difficult because of the debt limit and other things that are coming up that we really have to address. Now, if he declines, and that is a possibility, I'd say maybe a 25% possibility. If he declines, then John, it literally is a completely level playing field. There is no name that I can think of that rises above any other. Now, I'll put a plug in here. I'd love to see my friend Rigell. He's a Wisconsin fellow like Paul. I think it could be someone like that who is a strong member, but not necessarily a committee chair or something like that. It'll be a fascinating process. We will elevate the right person, the right man or woman, and we'll get on track here and do what we need to do. I'm confident of that.
Some members that we've talked to, Congressman Rigell, in the Freedom Caucus have said, both on and off the record, that, look, Paul Ryan, nice guy, but here's the deal. He was part of the Young Guns, Eric Cantor, Kevin McCarthy, Paul Ryan. It's just basically, Boehner with a widow peak, if you will. How do you respond to that?
Oh, come on. Now, look, these fellows are my friends. I mean it literally. They are my friends. I voted for Daniel Webster back in January. You know that.
I know you did.
Jim Jordan's a good friend who leads it. But I'll tell you, if we think that guys that are coming from typically our 25 districts and things like this that are incredibly strong Republican districts, that they can come to Washington, define the agenda not just for their own district or their own state, but for the nation, and just can, by government shutdowns or whatever. And you might think that's like an unfair characterization. It is not. I mean, I was talking to my friends about Planned Parenthood and that whole thing. I said, look, and I talked about this on your show, John. I said, we ought to be focusing on the 3 states that we know that these videos were shot in. And I tried to make the case to my colleagues and directly to my friends in the Freedom Caucus that we ought to focus on those 3 states, stop funding there. I think we can have a win. I think we can get a bill on the president's desk for him to sign or veto, and we can really narrow this thing down to the pressure point. You know what I was told by my friends literally in the caucus? They said, well, Scott, our guys won't vote for that. Well, okay, then what's that going to leave us with? It's going to leave us with what we got, which is nothing. You can't shut the government down for 15, 20 days on an issue that 60-65% of the people in America are not with you on. And so that's what I'm trying to tell my friends who I love, and I'm just as fiscally conservative as they are. Absolutely. I will yield nothing to my friends there. But they have got to find a way to work with us, all of us. And I think that Paul could do this. That's an unfair characterization of him. I really believe that. We need to have success and get a bill that the president isn't going to like to sign, but he will sign. That's good governance, and that's moving us to the right, a click or 2 or 3. That's what I'm trying to do, is move us to the right. Less government, more efficient government, less intrusion, less overreach by the EPA, for example. And Paul absolutely could do that.
So, Congressman, if you voted for Daniel Webster, I'm just saying, if you voted for what you did, you voted for Webster against Boehner last January, last cycle. Why wouldn't you stick with him now?
Oh, I mean, listen, I might, but I have to say, I'm going to see among all that I voted for Daniel Webster because among those who were running, and there are 4 candidates, Mr. Yoho, Louis Gohmert, and the Speaker, John Boehner, and then Daniel. And Daniel was the best candidate among the 4. And I voted my conscience and just let it fall where it would fall. Daniel would be a fine speaker. Look, I'll give you a little insight, at least from Virginia, too. Nobody said this to me, but I really wonder, John, if he could prevail in this case. Here's why, because not me. I could easily vote for and advocate for my friend Daniel, but I think some guys who are bitter about how all this whole thing has gone down, to the extent that he's seen as a Freedom Caucus candidate, look, they're organized and they're known and they got a name and that, but there's a lot of members. There's 247 of us, I think, at this moment, and there are a lot of members who resent the disproportionate influence, and I don't know that they're going to just saddle up with somebody who says, "Well, here's the Freedom Caucus candidate." And by the way, they're not unified on that. That's really a false assumption. Mo Brooks would tell you, he said that on television. He said, "Look, some members are for Paul Ryan, some members were for Kevin." Reed Rigell, for example, my friend, he was a member of the Freedom Caucus. He was a strong advocate for Kevin. So this idea that they're monolithic in their support of someone, that really isn't. It just isn't factually true.
Well, but you do have to admit, when the Freedom Caucus came out and said, we're endorsing Daniel Webster, right? That took Kevin McCarthy by shock. I mean, everybody that I knew in there said that he never saw that coming, and that Jordan was convinced that he had 90% of his members going to vote against McCarthy, which would have stopped him from being 218 and embarrassed the House. So,
John, fair enough. Look, I guess maybe we're into some nuances and some details here, but I'm not saying that whole initiative wasn't influential. It was to a great degree, and it was that inability to win over enough members of the Freedom Caucus that kept Kevin from moving forward. I will say, and I've said this publicly, it's been quoted a little bit, I see this as cathartic, and I believe that something constructive is going to come out of this, and what I mean by that are substantive changes both to conference rules, the rules by which we govern ourselves as the Republican majority, and also in House rules. Mm-hmm. And I think that whoever is elevated, whether it is Paul or someone else, there will be substantive rule changes that will really empower a representative to get something done. I'll give you a quick example. My friend Reed Rigell, he's got a bill that's got like 219 or 20 co-sponsors. I mean, the majority of all committees, all kinds of things. It's both some Republican and Democratic support, so it's well over what would pass the House for biannual budgeting. He can't get it to the floor, even though it's the will of the House. It's clearly the will of the House, and it's good legislation. He can't get it to the floor because there's some committee chairmen that don't want it getting to the floor, and it really frustrates Reed. And I know he wouldn't mind me sharing this example on the show. But it's that kind of thing. Maybe there's a threshold of, look, you get to, let's say you get to 250 or 225 or something. Your bill can come to the floor.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not only frustrating Congressman Rigell, it's frustrating America because you're stifling debate, and the power is in the hands of a few. And that's one thing for them to do it in the Senate, but the House was not designed by the founding fathers to be this way. It was for the people, so all this stuff should come up. What about Scott Rigell for Speaker?
John, I'm going to take that as a sincere question. I don't think I'm hardwired for it. I really don't. It is I think my skill set is different. I'm not saying this nearly as eloquently as Trey Gowdy did in conference. He spoke right after the speaker, announced his retirement, and Trey was so eloquent. He said, "I am not the man. I don't have the skill set, and I'm just not the man." I was told by Paul Ryan to figure out what I'm good at up here and stick to it. And he was talking about his work, leading the Benghazi committee. And for me, John, it is fiscal sanity, fiscal discipline. I think that's what I bring to the House. I bring an appreciation for, an understanding of the facts as it relates to our budget. As a fiscal conservative, I make the case for mandatory spending reform with my Democratic colleagues and indeed my Democratic friends who I represent, who live in Virginia too. That's what I'm all about, and changing the institution, changing Congress, getting regular order out there. And I tell you, if there's one thing that is rewarding in all of this, when I first got there, John, 3 months into this, I was standing up in conference saying, how are we possibly going home when our bills aren't passed? All of our appropriations bills aren't passed. We need to stay until all of our bills are passed. That's regular order, and now no one was talking about it back then, John.
Right.
No one. And I was, like a broken record. This is not good for our country. It's hurting our military.
Right.
We need to pass our bills. And now everybody's talking about it. I'm like, okay, maybe I played some part in that. That's a good thing.
Well, it's now Rob Whitman's first district number one issue. So certainly you've got that. I have got, Congressman, we have got 2 minutes. 2 minutes only. I just want to get very quickly, you're working on a very important piece of legislation called America First, a 136-page bill that you're going to drop. I've only got a minute and a half, so we can't go into the details. But conceptually lay it out, and then when you drop it, we'll have you back on to get into the details.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate the opportunity. There is universal repudiation of sequestration. It's not only hurting defense, it's hurting every federal agency. And the problem on our spending side is really not on the discretionary side, it's on the mandatory side. And so what my bill does is it wisely lifts, not all, but the majority of the cuts that are in place right now because of sequestration. It moves those cuts over to mandatory spending, which must be done. And, John, it has a touch of revenue increases to higher-income Americans so that it is politically viable. Bill, I'm not interested in advancing a messaging bill. You can tell by the substance of it, 136 pages. This is a real bill, and I'm pressing it forward with Kevin McCarthy. I'm pressing it forward with Hal Rogers on appropriations. Talked to Dr. Price on budget. We are pushing it, and they're listening because we need leadership. We need people to put things out there, not just say we ought to be. We ought to be. We don't need any more we ought to be. We need real solutions, and that's what America First is. And thanks for letting me introduce it here.
Okay, we're excited about it. We're going to have you back on in the next couple of weeks when we can get more details on it. We want to thank Congressman Scott Rigell for his candor and forthrightness as always.